Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a phenomenal show coming right up with special guest, Dr. Nina-Shapiro. And she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Hype, A Doctor's Guide to Medical Myths, Exaggerated Claims, and Bad Advice. How to tell what's real and what's not. Dr. Nina is one of America's leading physicians with more than 2 decades of experience in clinical and academic medicine. She's a trusted expert whom her patients and the media rely on routinely to set the record straight about the latest health fads and misconceptions. Her trademark wisdom, engaging personality, and no-nonsense attitude will be accessible to readers everywhere with this new book. So let's welcome to the show Dr. Nina-Shapiro.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to have you here. And my goodness, once I picked up your book, I'm like, wow, this is not a thing. I can't believe this is not a thing, and it just really puts stuff in such a great perspective. Things that that people worry about, like, am I taking enough vitamins or all these different things,
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed writing it, and, with the goal for people to really enjoy reading it. It's, obviously our health is a very important, can be heavy subject, but I wanted to make it fun so people would, that it would actually be a good, juicy read that's not too, sort of overwhelming and dense with, medical jargon. Because I think, we have so much information. We don't need necessarily a book. We have the internet. We have all this information thrown at us on an hour-to-hour basis. But the point of writing Hype, was really to empower people to recognize nonsense and understand what they're doing for their own health and why they're doing it, and going forward, sort of what they can do better to keep themselves healthier.
Was that the main inspiration behind writing this book? Because I'm sure that, as a very well-known MD, you have people coming in all the time with maybe different questions, and maybe you're seeing some patterns here in some of the things they're asking you.
So yes, I work in a large medical center in a large city, and part of it is just what I hear, questions I hear at work from patients, from families, and interesting things, and people's misunderstandings of how information is given to them, and I really want, I was inspired to really set the record straight so people can understand and why they're making these choices, and a lot of it, frankly, is nonsense and unnecessary. And people, we all worry, we're all concerned, but to refocus on what's important for our health. We all want to live longer, we all want to live better, but really, there's so much sort of fuzz out there that's going on, and people need to sort of take a step back and understand the very basics about how to be and stay healthy.
Well, I can understand why Dr. Sanjay Gupta said that every home should have a copy of Hype, because it really does break through all of that and make it really easy to understand, okay, what's up, what's down with some of these things, because it gets, even as a consumer, you can get kind of confused,
Oh, easily. And, doctors can too. We can fall for hype just as much as people not in medicine. And so, it's also for doctors to understand, if we read a study or if we're looking at information, or if we get information from a patient or from another doctor, how can we understand it and make sense of it too?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love how you start off with kind of the social media aspect. Like, if we're going to go see a new doctor, some of the things that we should do before we consider having them as our doctor.
Yeah, and social media is first, because it's really what most people have the largest and most frequent access to, is their social media account of any sort, even if it's just texting a friend. I think people get really caught up in the quote-unquote popular websites or the websites that look the best. And even when it comes to a doctor, don't choose your doctor because they have the nicest website or even the nicest office. That may not necessarily be the best. I talk a little bit about Yelping your doctor. Is that really the best way to determine the quality of care that you're going to get? Well, the fact is not necessarily, because people who have an illness, it's really hard to say that you have a good doctor or a bad doctor if you get better or you don't get better. And that's not usually what people are measuring. They're usually measuring the experience, which is not necessarily equal to, the quality of care that they're getting.
It makes really good sense. I mean, you can have the greatest experience in the world, but if you're having a serious medical condition, you want a doctor that can take care of business.
Exactly. You're not looking for a friend, although it's nice for your doctor to be friendly, but, it's really, just, you want good care, and again, you don't necessarily want parking validation.
Yeah.
Although that can't hurt.
So yeah, it depends on the city, right?
Exactly. Big cities like it, but even without it, you want good quality care.
What were some of the myths that when you were doing your research, you're like, I've got to get to the bottom of this. This just cannot be true, or I've got to just do a little bit more research on what is behind all of this.
I think one of the biggest myths, and it's one of the biggest money sinks in this country, is the issue of vitamins. And I really thought that it's good, frankly, even after I did the research, after I wrote the book, I still take a vitamin every day. But all of the very large studies over many continents, thousands and thousands of people over many, many decades have all shown that assuming you don't have a severe vitamin deficiency, which is extremely rare, especially in this country, taking a multivitamin does not make you healthier. And taking most vitamin supplements, unless you have a specific deficiency or ailment, are not necessary and don't necessarily bring on better health. So that was kind of interesting, because we're all, we all have our routines, and many of us take vitamins. Many of us give vitamins to our kids or our pets, or, we continue it. And part of it is just part of our healthy lifestyle, which is absolutely fine as long as we understand that it is somewhat of a luxury. It's a cost. $12 billion per year in this country are spent on supplements. So it doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't make us healthier. And some of them, if you take it in too high doses, can actually cause some harm. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I found that to be so fascinating, because I've heard, here we go with hearsay. I've heard that if you take, different vitamins, that your body will either stop, producing or pulling from the foods that we eat, the vitamins that's needed, because we have an overabundance in the body. And that kind of made a little sense. I'm like,
yeah. Well, most of the vitamins, especially, people take megadose vitamin C or, other sorts of, B vitamins. Most of them just get excreted out some way. So, expensive pee and poop, as we say. Unless it's, unless you're not able to digest them or metabolize them, then they can actually cause some problems, some liver problems, some kidney problems if you take extremely high doses on a regular basis of some of these vitamins. So, certainly they can potentially do some harm, but extremely unlikely. The biggie is taking vitamin C to prevent and reduce the duration of colds, and there's no evidence of that.
Well, and I've heard people using vitamin C as well to help as an antioxidant. So
sure.
Stay younger and look better.
Yeah, so we don't want to be oxidized. It's like rust, right? So we don't want to look like the iron that oxidizes, because we'll rust away. So we want an antioxidant. But, again, it doesn't always clearly translate to how it would look in a laboratory, where you would hear about an antioxidant preventing or curing or helping treat cancer. It doesn't always translate directly to something you eat or drink. And I think people get really easily kind of lured into that idea, whether it's a vitamin or a smoothie or a shake, where there's, this buzzword antioxidant that's going to sort of bust or prevent or treat cancer. And unfortunately, it's not quite so straightforward.
Yeah, and it is a buzzword because people see that all the time. Oh, blueberries give you a higher percentage of antioxidants than, other berries or what have you. And
yeah,
so you
and
look
again,
at that going, well, I need to buy blueberries then.
Right, exactly. And then if you look at who funded the study, it was the study, like the blueberry extract guys who funded a study on blueberries. So, there's some bias in that. And then even if there is more in the food, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stick to you. So a lot of it probably just goes right through, especially something like blueberries. As good as they are for you, it's not necessarily going to, prevent or cure cancer, straight away, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and then this leads me to my next topic, superfoods. So what's that all about? Yeah, because you hear that just alongside with like antioxidants. So
yeah, so superfood is a great buzzword, and it really has no actual meaning except that it sounds really good, and it must be good because it's a superfood. So when I was growing up in the 70s, pasta was a superfood. And it wasn't spaghetti anymore, so it sounded healthier because we were eating pasta, and then we were having granola and bran muffins, and now we all know that those are not necessarily healthy at all. So, the superfood of the day, and then there was frozen yogurt. So, the superfood of the day just, changes, and now, we have things, blueberries are considered a superfood, and a lot of other berries, goji berries, acai is another type of berry, curcumin, some of the spices, and, certainly they're healthy and they're helpful and they're good to eat as part of your diet, but it's not necessarily that direct correlation that, I'm going to eat this superfood and then not get cancer or prevent getting cancer or worse, treat my cancer. And a lot of people get sort of wrapped up in that. And again, superfoods have a lot of health benefits, but it's not necessarily, a magic pill by any stretch.
I know I have a couple friends that are going to be very thrilled to hear that, and I'm sure they'll be picking up your book Hype because actually one of my friends, when we go and grab smoothies, I mean, it's like she's just kind of choking it down, hates the entire experience.
You could just eat an apple and it would be just fine. One apple. Get the fiber, and you're good to go. You don't have to drink the smoothie and all those extra powders. Again, it's fine if you enjoy it, if it makes you feel good, and that's another thing for a lot of this stuff. It's placebo effect, and the placebo effect is real. If you feel healthier drinking your smoothie with the extra, mega powders, or if you feel healthier by taking multivitamins, then by all means, if you can afford to do it, do it. And it's not, and the placebo effect is not fake. It's a real phenomenon where you feel healthier and you can actually be healthier by doing a lot of these things. But that's really what it is. It's not anything more than that. But again, not to demean it, but it's not a real physiologic effect that's, from the smoothie or from the vitamin. It's just making you feel better. So if you take a vitamin C when you feel a cold coming on and, wow, your cold doesn't come on, it must have been the vitamin C. It wasn't, but you can think that it is, and that's just fine.
That's so funny, though. That's one of those, like, wives' tales, It's like, take vitamin C and you can, and tons of zinc and you'll feel better,
And you know what? I still do it. And I wrote a book about it, and it's fine because I feel like it makes me feel better. But I know that it doesn't that it's not really. And that's the other thing about the placebo effect that's kind of interesting. Even if you know you're doing something purely for placebo effect, it can still work.
Well, I love that. I know my friend will no longer be getting kale shakes, so she'll be very happy to do that. So,
oh, goodness.
Yeah, because at least it can be an enjoyable experience,
No, and also when you blend all that healthy stuff, and kale is very healthy, but when you blend it into this liquid, you lose one of the main benefits of kale or apple or mango or any of the blueberries even is the fiber. And you have a body, an intestinal tract to break down the fiber. You have an internal juicer, and that's much more effective than, doing it in a blender, which does all the work for you. You digest it faster. It's a much higher sugar. You don't need more concentrated vitamins. And, it's better to just eat less, eat fewer vegetables and fruit, and you'll get more benefits than a 10-ounce smoothie, for sure.
Mm. I'm sure she's going to be very happy. Well, and so kind of,
I'll take her out to dinner.
You know what? I'm not a friend of kale, so I get it. I'm like, put that in my smoothie.
Yeah, kale you can eat as a food if you want on it. Kale used to be like, those fruit platters that you see at parties, and there's like the little side stuff, the green stuff around the fruit platter. That's kale.
Mm-hmm.
That nobody.
That's decoration.
Yeah, that's what kale is actually, and now it's like this, magic superfood. It's kind of funny.
Well, and another buzzword I'd love for you to touch on that you hear people talk a lot about is like, we should stay away from gluten because gluten is bad.
Right. So gluten is the evil of the day, and part of it is that it is erroneously lumped together with carbs. Because people think that I'm going to go on a no-gluten diet is the same as going on a low-carb diet. And gluten is actually a protein. It's not even a carbohydrate, but it's in wheat-containing products. It's in breads and pastas and all that good stuff. It's kind of this gummy material that makes everything taste so good and gives it that good consistency. And there is an entity, a disease called celiac disease, which is definitely on the rise. And that is a true gluten call it whatever you want, allergy, insensitivity, intolerance. You cannot, it's very, very dangerous actually to eat gluten if you are truly someone with celiac disease. But there are not millions of people walking around with celiac disease. Then there's a very sort of newer group of people that are quote-unquote gluten intolerant, where they don't have celiac disease, but they feel uncomfortable after eating gluten-containing products. And that's sort of like having, just like anything else that would give you an upset stomach, and you sort of decide what to eat and what not to eat. But you're not gluten, you don't have celiac, you don't have a disease. So people really make a big deal about this. And then what people do who don't eat gluten is they substitute other things in their diet which are not necessarily healthier. So, rice there's no gluten in white rice, so people are eating a lot more rice and rice flour, and there are other, components of that are not necessarily healthy, and it's a carb. A lot of the gluten-free foods, maybe in order for them to taste good, will probably have a little bit more sugar, a little bit more fat. So people equate being gluten-free to being healthy or being carb-free, but it's hype. It's unnecessary, and as with most things, especially when it comes to diet, it's really just about basic common sense moderation. You don't want to eat a diet filled just with carbohydrates and high gluten and high sugar and high fat, but you don't have to remove it completely from your diet in order to be healthy.
I think that's so reassuring to so many people because they hear so much conflicting information. And to get, just the bottom line, this is what you need to know. That's why Hype, I think, is such a valuable book.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's really just to get people to understand where their choices are coming from. And again, not that it's wrong or you shouldn't do this or you should, do this, but just here's what here's why you think you're doing what you're doing, but here's really what the science behind it is and the logic behind it and the studies behind it. So people can really say, well, I guess it really doesn't make sense that I do this thing. So maybe I don't need to do it and I'll be just as healthy or even healthier and feel better.
Yeah, and that's really where we want to get people to be. And you as a doctor, I'm sure it's kind of like, hey, I want healthier people.
Yes. We love to see patients, but we like to see healthy people.
Well, and so I think we have time for a couple more questions here. So, I know one of the other things that people talk about all the time is cell phones and cancer. So what are your thoughts on that?
I know. That's a tricky one because that was a real big scare a few years ago where cell phones were really coming on the rise and people are on, looking at, numbers were coming out that the average adult was on their cell phone 7 hours per day, and children were on several hours per day as well. And then we were starting to see potentially a connection to certain types of brain tumors. A lot of those are not malignant tumors, cancerous, but still brain tumors near the ear on the side that people were holding their cell phone. So there was a question of whether, the EM, electromagnetic radiation, was predisposing people to brain tumors. And even the neurosurgeons in large academic centers were conflicted on this and had two very different opinions, either absolutely yes, absolutely no on this. Some of the, and again, this is one of those still up in the air, and people get very frustrated. You doctors have to give us an answer, or, which is it, or why are you flip-flopping? But, we still, believe it or not, it's still relatively early in the cell phone, time to know what the actual correlation is between the two. The most recent studies have shown that there is none, that there is no direct connection between cell phone use and brain tumors. However, there have been some smaller studies which have shown that there is some connection. So at this point, the jury is still out. One thing I can say is that cell phones are the absolute association between using cell phones and car accidents and traffic deaths.
Oh, yeah.
So texting while driving is the new drunk driving. Teenagers, are increasingly texting and driving, and actually texting and driving predisposes teenagers to other dangerous driving behaviors. So that is a clear thing to just say about cell phones. And also social media, kids using cell phones, bullying, that's definitely correlated with teen suicide and depression. So that is, I think, a much more, again, people lose sight of what's really going on. I'm going to get a brain tumor. No, you're more likely to have a horrible traffic accident because you or someone else is on their cell phone when driving than you are to have a brain tumor from using a cell phone.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a really big advocate on not using cell phones when driving. I was almost killed 5 years ago because somebody was on a cell phone in a mountain road, and I all I saw was the top of this kid's head the entire time. He never looked. He looked up at the last minute, and
it's terrifying. And this happens every day. Thousands of people are almost dying from these cell phone related incidents. Much more than worrying about getting a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. It's really interesting when you break it all down. And gosh, there's so much great advice in your book. What final thoughts do you want to leave our listeners with? Because I just have a hard time picking what to talk about next. We could be on here for hours.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that in the book, I really want people to get a sense of control and understanding. And I think one of the things, and the cell phone is a perfect example of perspective. People are so easily lured into some dramatic event, whether it's a new wild virus that's hitting the United States or some airports, or a horrible event or disease that we're concerned about, and people are everyone gets pulled into these dramatic tragedies that we forget about the very, very basics. Again, and it doesn't make headline news, but it's things like wearing a seatbelt every time you're in a car. Kids need to sit in the back seat. You need to wear a bike helmet when you're bicycling. You need to wear sunscreen on a regular basis. You need to not text and drive. All of these very basic things will keep us young and healthy. There's no skin cream. There's no magic powder. There's no juice cleanse that can do that.
That's good to hear, because it really kind of cuts away from because it can be so overwhelming. There's a product for everything. It's nice to know that you can kind of just cut away from all of that, and the body does its own thing.
Yeah, and I think people will be happier if they can just sort of, live a balanced life and not be so caught up in, the latest and greatest, whether it's, something amazing or something terrible, that, the chances of either of those things happening are so slim. as opposed to the big common stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think actually we've got a couple more minutes, so I'm going to ask this one. One of the things that you hear, and there's been lots of debate going back and forth, is in regards to vaccines and vaccinations.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I have one thought on that. Vaccines, I'm a very strong proponent of vaccines, and not only getting vaccines, and primarily, when we talk about vaccines, we most often think about children because people are concerned about, any sort of potential for vaccine injury, and, developmental issues related to vaccines. But my recommendation, and all of the large studies over many thousands and thousands of kids have shown no negative impacts of getting vaccines on time and on schedule, and they're scheduled for a reason, and the reason is to protect the entire population, because people, there are some individuals, whether it's from a medical problem or medication that they're receiving, that cannot get vaccines, and you need to be sort of part of the, as a citizen, protecting yourself, but also protecting those around you. And that's why we have not only widespread vaccination, and we've knocked out a lot of these diseases until they've started to come back, but, we have schedules because not all the vaccines work from one time. They have to be boosted. And that's how these schedules are created, in order to enable as few people, primarily kids, from slipping through the cracks as possible. And unfortunately, we're seeing these diseases come back, and it's, purely because people are choosing not to immunize, and it's a choice. We have some laws now in some states, and certainly if kids want to go to school, we do have some more laws, but people can still get out of it. And, there are plenty of loopholes, and it's dangerous, and we're seeing the impacts.
Well, your book, Hype, I love it. I'm keeping my copy. I'm not sharing it with any of my friends. They're going to have to, but I probably will get a few as gifts, and I know people will want to get their own copy of Hype. Dr. Nina, where can people connect with you and be part of your community?
So my website is doctor, which is dr-nina-shapiro.com. So it's dr-nina-shapiro.com. On Twitter, also at dr-nina-shapiro. Instagram at Dr. Nina Shapiro, and my Facebook page is also Dr. Nina Shapiro.
Well, I'm connected with you. I highly advise that everyone connect with you as well. Dr. Nina, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nina. It has been such a joy to spend this time with you, and of course, to talk about your new book, Hype. Hype is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and all major retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.